Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled podcast, the podcast where Steve and I chat about all things Porsche. It's Wednesday morning. We're recording Friday's episode. Good morning, Steve. Good evening. Good afternoon, mate. Actually. How are you?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
I'm all right. How is your house hunting?
Yeah, next. It's not fun.
Not fun?
Not fun.
I don't understand. Can I ask a question? I always like to start the podcast with a COVID question. I don't understand how Australia is in such a mess and they're still allowing house viewings.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But mind you, so I've always sort of said that, like my wife and I don't really want to get into too much kind of personal detail about it, but we're super careful, and they're just one-on-ones. Like you're literally like one person into the house with like a real estate agent, and that's it.
Oh, really?
So
just one at
like,
a time?
Yes. Even if you're a couple, we're bringing the kids and they're sort of sitting in the car, so one's minding the kids in the car and the other one's walking in.
Are you allowed to take videos and pictures while you go in or not?
Never tried, I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I don't know. Like, I think, like, to the I also kind of agree. It's like, I don't really get, like, why is it that important? Like, I think it'd be different if you were renting and you'd lost your home. You kind of got pushed out and you needed to kind of find something quick. But it's a bit harder to kind of argue that, you know, like you need to kind of buy a new house, you know, super urgently. But then one thing that does sort of factor in is that, you know, like, for example, us, if you're pre-approved for your new monster mortgage, that only lasts 3 months.
Yeah, you got to be quick.
So then if you kind of have to go again, like you do sort of slightly feel like you've got this 3-month window, which is just the life of it's being sucked out by kind of COVID and a lockdown. But,
yeah,
you know, they're all first world problems.
Yeah, they are, and I'm glad I'm not in lockdown. I have to say, you know, the one thing I do like about Bahrain is the weather. I keep saying it. Natasha, my wife, doesn't like it. She doesn't like the heat. It's not. It doesn't feel super hot. It's hot. No, it is hot. What am I telling you about? We went down to the Avenues, one of the malls here, the newer mall on the water. I posted a picture on my Instagram actually on stories, and we're inside the mall, and you know, you go outside. You know what I mean? As soon as you walk outside, because it's got a great view of Bahrain Harbour there, where you can take a great photo. As soon as you go outside, this was last Saturday. I think it was Saturday. Oh my God. The heat, it really does not. In the middle of the day, the heat knocks you around. You know what I mean? Like I go to the gym. We go to the gym every day upstairs. You know, there's no limit. There's no restrictions here now. The gym's open upstairs. And, you know, after about an hour or so, I'll just go and sit outside. I'll sit by the pool. Sometimes I'll go for a swim. Other times I won't. But I'll just sit in the sun for like, well, I say 20 minutes. I say 20 minutes. I think my limit is about 15, and then I just have to get out of there. Yesterday
you look a bit pink.
Yesterday it was
so. You have a little blushing tone to
I am. I got a bit sunburned yesterday. And yesterday I normally don't put my running shoes back on, right? I normally just walk on the tiles and I just run across the tiles. Yesterday I literally had to turn back. I had to turn back and go back on the seat and put my shoes on because the tiles were so hot. I'm not kidding. They were roasting my feet, Steve. They were absolutely roasting. And this is like, you know, 11:30, 12 o'clock, you know, middle of the day. So it's a bit crazy. Hey, let's start with Patreon because we've got a new member for Patreon this week. Michael, good name. Michael, I don't know much about you. I don't think I know much about you. I've said this before, and then people call me out and say, you know, you do know who I am. But I don't think I know Michael, but Michael's joined Patreon. Patreon is where you can go and support the podcast. It's PorscheCooled. On Patreon, you do a search on Patreon, it'll come up straight away, or you go patreon.com/PorscheCooled. It just helps keep us talking. As you know, the podcast is not sponsored in any other way. That's the only way we make a little bit of money to just upgrade our equipment, etc. PorscheCooled owner story, Steve. Have you listened to it this week?
I haven't. It only went live here this morning.
And I didn't send it to you. I had such a crazy day yesterday. Sorry, my day yesterday was just insane.
I'm all over the shop anyway. I wouldn't have had a chance to listen to it even if you did send it to me.
Benjamin. Hi, Benjamin. I know you're listening. I had a great chat with Benjamin. It went a little bit longer than usual, and it went a bit longer than usual because Benjamin has had a lot of cars.
Massive car history.
Yeah, it's a good story, Steve. I think you might enjoy it. Benjamin was a really nice guy. I really enjoyed the chat. He's from North Carolina in the US. He's a long-time car enthusiast, and he's a hack mechanic, as he calls himself. I must be, I feel a bit dumb sometimes because I didn't know what a hack mechanic was. I had to ask Benjamin at the end what it was. But now I know. But he's got, I think you will like it because you've seen the pictures of his car. I've sent it to you already. His 1995 993 Carrera 2 in your old favorite color.
Yep. A Ventura, or in America it's called a Aventurine.
Aventurine. What's the proper pronunciation? I can't even say pronunciation. What's the proper pronunciation of that in your mind?
Know. But in Australia it was Aventura, not Aventurine.
Aventurine. Yeah, but we always pronounce things differently. Aluminum, aluminium, same thing, correct? Kind
Potato.
of. Anyway, Benjamin's got his 993. It's a really nice example. I want to talk about the wheels because I probably think that you probably don't like them, Steve, but I want to talk about the wheels as well in a second. Benjamin's also got a Boxster. He's got an 03 Boxster S manual, basalt black, natural tan interior. I was never a fan of the natural tan interiors on Boxsters when they were around 2004. Now I see them and I find the black a little bit, I don't know.
Is that that Savannah?
Yeah.
You're talking the tan colour?
Yeah, I think it is. I think he's a Savannah. I'm not sure what color it is. That tan color. I don't know. I like the black and tan combination. If I was ordering a new 911, which is never going to happen, but if I was ordering a new 992, I would get the split color dash interior. I wouldn't go with the black interior. Oh, maybe I would. Maybe I'd go with the Sportex because I really do like that Sportex interior in the 992. Do you know what I mean? I like that weave of that seat. I think it's a really nice looking seat. Benjamin also has a 97 Land Rover. Quite reliable, Steve, just so you know, not unreliable. In Beluga Black, as per the caviar. So he's got one of those. But basically, Benjamin over the last, I don't know, since I think it was in 2020, Benjamin first reached out to me. He sent me a 912, this beautiful 912 that's for sale in his area. It's still for sale. It's this orange 912, Steve. It's very, very nice, but it's up there in price. And I shared it with you, right? I'm not going to say it too much because other people will find it, but because I still look at it and drool over it, like that's the perfect one. And apparently Benjamin was saying to me that the mechanic that worked on that is a really well-respected mechanic. I think he said Ferrari mechanic, though. But well-respected mechanic that worked on it. The whole engine's been rebuilt on that car. It's a really beautiful, beautiful example. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Benjamin's got a great story. He started with air-cooled VWs. He bought a Volkswagen Beetle when he was 14. He bought a Volkswagen Beetle before he could even get his license, Steve, and he worked on it so that when he got his license, he had a really cool car to drive. His friends did the same sort of thing. That's what they did. They worked on cars. I know when I was growing up when I was in Wyong, in New South Wales in Australia, I know that I had a few friends that used to do that as well. But they were doing it with Tiranas at the time. They were doing it with Tiranas and fixing it up. I had a friend that was fixing up a Tirana GTR, which he had, which was not that expensive at the time.
I don't think any of my mates at that age were sort of into cars.
I think it's pretty cool though, right? It's pretty cool that you get it at 14 and you work on it, you rebuild it, you fix it, and then it's, you get your license and you've got this Volkswagen. And of course, I guess Volkswagens then though, I guess you go back, maybe they weren't as popular as what they are now. I mean, as I've said before, when I was in high school, a lot of people had Beetles and combi vans. It was just because they were cheap.
Yep.
And in a surf area, they were the sort of cars that people drove. That's what the cars that had the surfboards on the roof.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, Benjamin said he had the 993, he had the Boxster, he had a lot of other cars. He sent me the list of cars. He's had 44 cars over the period of his car collection. He's had 44 cars. He's owned like 70s Mercedes, a lot of V-dubs, Beetles. He had that BMW M Coupe, Steve. He's had some
Clown Shoe.
Yeah, I don't mind that car. Do you like it?
Yeah, it's cool. The engine in it would be pretty bloody amazing. So,
I remember when I lived in Elizabeth Bay in Sydney, and I saw a guy in one of those, And I thought at the time it was like so odd. And then I keep seeing it, because he lived, down on Elizabeth Bay Road or whatever. And I used to live on the other street, Roslyn Gardens. And, I keep seeing it and keep seeing it. I think, man, that's a really cool car. And when they came out, they were so expensive, right? So expensive.
Weren't they cheaper than the equivalent M3?
Really? I thought they were a lot.
I think maybe they... No, I know they're really rare, but I don't think they were that kind of crazy, do you? Maybe I've got the wrong one. Yeah, anyway.
The funny shape one that looks like a funny shape with a hard roof.
Like a bread van.
Yeah, like a bread van. Yeah. But they don't really come up for sale anymore. They're very,
No, super, super, super scarce.
I saw one on car sales, but when they come up, they've got reasonably high kilometres as well. They're pretty high in the miles. People have driven them, which I guess is a good thing. But anyway, Benjamin's got a great story. That's Owner Stories this week. Owner Stories number 48, I think it is. Owner Stories number 48 with Benjamin from Charlotte in North Carolina. Have a listen to it, Steve. I think you'll enjoy it. Cool. Like I said, I had a really good chat with Benjamin. And if you want to go and follow him, it's Mod Classic Cars. Mod Classic Cars on Instagram. He's just set up an Instagram. He didn't have one. It's Mod Classic Cars. You can go and check out his cars on there, and he's posting things all the time now. Sweet. Steve, I want to talk about. Where am I? I'm looking at my notes because I'm a bit sleepy this morning.
It's okay. I'm not really with it either.
I want to talk about Matt Farah, actually. I just want to talk about the Safari because I wrote it down in my notes a while ago, and I think I was actually wrong. And I'm glad I didn't put it in a previous episode, but I'm going to just talk about it now. I just thought, like these people that do these Safari conversion cars, these Lee Keens, Lee Keen Safari, the Rod Emery, Outlaw 356s, which is a little bit different, but these custom cars. Obviously, they're a really good investment. You know what I mean? Like Matt Farah had his 88, whatever it was, 911 Carrera 3.2 G50, and which looked pretty immaculate when he first bought it. And people who don't know, who have been living somewhere else in the Porsche world, then he basically got Lee Keen. Lee Keen has Keen Project, which he does the Safari 911s. I forget what number he's up to now. There's another really good one on Instagram called Muffin the Safari, I think it is, his handle on Instagram, his page. He's got a green one with white wheels. I kind of like that one. I like the green with the white wheels. It's kind of like really cool. I know you're a white wheel fan, Steve. Yeah, massive. But it's interesting when Matt Farah, how he just... I don't know why he didn't post many videos of that Safari. Now, my assumption... He did it first. He posted a couple, but then he stopped. And he owned that car over a 3-year period. I didn't realize it was that long. And I thought he never really liked it because I remember him talking on a podcast how he had this car from Lee Keen and he didn't like how the engine was set up. He didn't like the transmission, and he sent it to that guy that they use in Los Angeles, TLC or whatever it's called, the Tony guy. Yep. And he had it reworked. Marco, wasn't it? So he made it so it was more drivable, right? He didn't like something to do with the gearing. Do you remember what it was? It had 2 race-year cam in it. So he figured that for a street car, like you kind of had to rev it out too much. So he switched that back. I think there was something about the clutch as well, that the clutch may have been a bit too heavy or something like that. That's right. He said the clutch was too heavy. And I listened to the podcast with, I think it was when he was talking to Hannah Elliott. Maybe it was a different one. Maybe it was a cruise show one. And he said that was one of the reasons why he sold it, right? Because even though he wanted it as a daily around Los Angeles or whatever, he found the clutch too heavy and he's got a gummy knee, right? So his knee's not great, so he couldn't really drive it that well. And that's when he said how many miles he did on the car in 3 years. And I forget the number, but I think it was like 5,000 or 6,000 miles or something. It was a reasonable amount of miles. And I was going to say in a previous episode, because I noticed that he'd sold it. And just for the listeners, if you don't know about this, these Safari Keens, I think the price I saw quoted, I don't know whether this is still the case, Steve, was about $100K for a Lee Keen Safari. US. But I don't think that included without the donor car. The donor car. And that was the price. That was a price not recently. That was a price about a year ago. Apparently, there's a waiting list. People want it. I think he helps find the donor car if you need him to. I think he'll do that. Or you can just give him the donor car. Matt Farah obviously gave him a very good quality donor car. I don't know whether you need to give a donor car that's that sorted. I don't know if it'll make a big difference or not. Maybe it'll increase your cost if you don't.
you say good quality, but then it needed an engine rebuild pretty much after he got the car back.
Exactly.
Which had nothing to do with Lee Keen, so...
Yeah, exactly, actually. That's a good point. So I thought that, he hated this car, right? Because he didn't post many videos. He said he was going to drive it every day. And then all of a sudden he's buying a 328 GTS and saying he's going to drive that every day. Now, I'm just wondering if these Safari cars are a little bit like that. I'm getting to a point here, yeah, they look cool. They look very, like that Baja one that the guy that did concept work for Singer that left Singer and built his own, Baja 911, which is a very cool one. But is this the sort of car that you want to drive every day? You know what I mean? Even though you think it's an everyday, like, city car, can go over gutters, I can drive this every day, I can get around. Is it? I don't think it is. You know what I mean? I think that's where it's wrong. I think the people that really enjoy these cars are those people that you see that go out with Lee Keen on his Instagram, are the people that go on these, take it off-road, go for 4 days, you drive the hell out of it, and then you put it back in your garage. It seems like they're the people that really enjoy these cars.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a different impression from what you had tapped out in the notes when you sort of said you thought your impression was that he didn't like it. I never got that. I just sort of felt like he was tweaking it as he kind of went along, and he had to sort of make adjustments. And he did do quite a few videos well, not quite a few, but he did do videos at the beginning. But when you think about it, he doesn't actually do that many videos on any of his cars. I think, like even on his podcast, like when somebody kind of goes, oh, how's your Ferrari going or whatever, he sort of answers it really quickly and sort of says, I don't really, we've been over this like many a time, so I'll tell you kind of off mic sort of thing. So I think to me, I just kind of got the impression that he was wary of over exposing and talking about, not just that car, but all of his cars. Yeah, it surprises.
So sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't get the impression that he hated it or anything like that. And when he sort of was talking, I think it wasn't the latest one, it was about 2 episodes ago when he just sort of said that he shifted it, he got rid of it. To me, it sounded like he was just cashing in, that basically Lee Keen obviously has his waiting list. He had a buyer because he sold it back to Lee Keen, and then Lee Keen sold it in the next day. And
oh, really?
He got a good price for it because it was ex-Matt Farah. So
I thought he sold it.
It sounded to me like it was just like, yeah, take it or leave it kind of thing. But as with everything, as we've sort of said, everything has its price. So I think he kind of got really good money for it, and that's why he kind of moved it on.
Well, in the podcast I just listened to, he said he made a lot of money. He said, whoever he was talking to, he said he made a lot. I thought he sold it directly to the new buyer. He said it sold in one day. I didn't realize he sold it back to Lee Keen.
Well, maybe it was obviously facilitated by Lee Keen, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, it just shows you the power of the market at the moment as well, but the power of that Safari market. I guess people want something unique. I mean, there's a lot of people I know in the Porsche camp that don't like how these cars are being used up for Safaris. But, in all honesty, Rod Emery's been doing it with 356s. They're not, he reworks them to their, not really original anymore, doesn't he? I mean, they're not really, they work. The same as Singer.
Arguably a Safari is like a bit more extreme than what, Rod Emery does to cars, isn't it?
I guess. But I mean, these Safari cars, like there's a 997 one doing the rounds on Instagram. I don't know whether you've seen that. Someone's done a 997 Safari. I mean, is that something you would do to a 997? You know what I mean? Like, would I say, hey, I got my 997 Carrera, should I turn it into a Safari? Because I had this really good I had a really good idea the other day. You're going to love this. And I know the listeners are going to laugh when I say this. I had a really good idea. And this was after seeing Muffin the Safari on Instagram, the green one with the white Fuchs wheels.
Right.
And I thought, maybe to make my car look a bit fresher, my 997 Carrera, maybe what I should do is I should put a white Porsche stripe on the side, right? And then I thought, well, the white Porsche stripe is not...
Suggested that to you before,
But the white Porsche stripe's not going to really work that well with the lobsters as they are, in my mind. So I thought, maybe I can get a second set of lobsters, and maybe I can get them custom refurbished in white and have a pair of white lobsters. I'm serious. I was thinking about this and I thought...
I know you are.
I could have a pair of the white custom lobsters with the white, and I don't know if it's the negative, if you call it the negative, you know more about this, Steve, with graphics, but is it the negative Porsche logo, like was on the 914s, Would that look better?
With
I
the
think
thicker stripe and the letters are cut out of the thick stripe, you mean?
yeah, I think they call it negative, don't they? People say negative stripe.
It's a lot more retro looking, yes.
Yeah, and I thought maybe you have that on the side, that Porsche on the side, and then you have the white lobsters. Because I think the lobster wheel, and I've said this before, right? We've talked about this before, that the lobster is the new Fuchs or whatever, right? It is to me like that.
Well, you think it is?
I think it is, yeah. I think it is, right? And I'm thinking, if you got them refurbished in white, and I know you know a couple of places in Sydney, and if I could pick up a cheap pair in white, maybe I should try it. I was thinking about it. I hope Natasha doesn't listen to this. She's going to be like going crazy at me. But I just think I should try it. Especially if I can get rid of those Tech Art 20 inches that I have in storage in Sydney. If anyone wants a pair of 20-inch Tech Art wheels at a really cheap price, contact me, and when I come back, they are definitely for sale. They are definitely for sale, and they're super cheap, and they'll fit a Cayenne as well. Anyone in Australia that's listening who wants these wheels. Seriously, I've got to get rid of them. What do you think?
I don't like white wheels, so you're talking to the wrong person. I've always said that I think a white stripe would work on your car, and I do actually think that it would work with silver wheels. Like, I think it's not that far gone that it won't sort of look funny, but it's your car. Do whatever you want. Like, if you actually wanted to test the water, the other way to do that is just to use Plastidip. Use the Plastidip paint and spray your wheels and have a look and see what you. But like a second set of wheels, like lobsters are still, despite your want for them to be the new Fuchs, they're not. And I think like you can still pick them up pretty cheap, can't you?
By the way, I didn't mention it last week. Excuse me, I didn't mention it last week when in last week's Owner Stories with Matt from Victoria with his 996. Did you notice and did you look at the pictures on his Instagram how he changed the wheels, how it had aftermarket wheels, and he actually got the GT3 wheels? He said it in the podcast, actually. I
only saw it on the GT3 wheels.
Yeah.
I saw it on the multi-spoke BBS GT3 two-piece wheels.
Yeah, because he had other wheels before, and then he picked up those, and then he put them on the car just after the podcast, and then he posted a picture. Those wheels look so good, don't they? There's so much. There was some. I think, and I know Matt, you're listening, but they were so much better than the than the original wheels he had on it, the aftermarket wheels.
I didn't see the aftermarket one, so I
check it out.
Comment
have a look.
on that. Yeah. Yep.
GT3s. You want to talk about GT3s? The first thing I want to talk about is that one we're going to talk about a little bit about GT3s, not so much about value, but a little bit, because a couple of things annoyed Steve and I during the week on YouTube.
I'm easily annoyed, man.
Annoyed us on YouTube, and I'm going to call it out because I don't care. So PTS Shades on Instagram. If you haven't been to PTS Shades on Instagram, go to that site, go to that page, I should say, and follow them. He has really good images of different colors that are coming out in Porsches, PTS colors, paint to sample colors. Steve sent it to me during the week. I hadn't actually seen it. For some reason, I didn't see it in my feed. And it's the millionth 911 that was done. If you guys can remember that, the listeners can remember that, the green one, Irish green, right, Steve?
Irish green. Yep.
And Irish green had gold lettering at the back. Someone's reimagined that. I'm going to steal that word. Reimagined it and done it in the 992 GT3 Touring. They've spec'd their 992 GT3 Touring out to be very similar to that car. What did you think of it, Steve?
Yeah, I'm a little bit, I don't know. I'm a little bit sort of tired of green cars, but admittedly this one does look pretty cool. I don't know, I never really got the kind of green car phase, but then I also never really understood the green watch phase. But I'm not a massive kind of green person, even though now that I think about it, I actually have had green cars. I don't know, the car, it does look pretty cool. I don't know, the silver mirrors, so it's Irish green, it's got silver wheels, it's got matching kind of silver door mirrors, ceramic brakes, not bucket seats. It's got the sort of touring seats, but still with the recent 911R 50th anniversary cloth, which I've kind of got in my car as well, which I quite like, and gold badging. And wood trim. The wood trim is a little bit polarizing. I'm not sure about that.
I really like it. I like the and you've mentioned the main points.
Yep.
There's a few things I don't like. I like how you can spec it this much, though. I like how Porsche's giving you this option of most of the things. Now, in the text, the guy from PTS Shades makes the point that he's not sure whether the gold lettering would have come straight from Porsche, because apparently gold lettering is a bit of a...
issue with it?
Yeah, did you read it in the thing? He makes the point about the gold lettering being not so freely available by Porsche. He says something like, I'm uncertain if this is factory or not, simply because I remember some of the issues people ran into with the gold lettering on the Speedster, as Porsche would only apply them from factory on heritage models, but regardless, it does not complete the look rather well, but it does complete the look rather well here. So maybe the guy maybe that's not from factory. But the car in general, I think there's one point which I think looks really, really good. And I think 2 points, actually. I think is that silver wheels are not really popular at the moment. People like black, people like the colored wheels,
I thought they've come back into fashion.
I think you think they've come back in fashion, Steve, because I think you're the top of the food chain. You know what I mean? I think you're early adopter, and I think you are, and I think you really are. And I think you forget. And I think they haven't, I don't think everyone has embraced them as much as what I know you think they are, and I think they are too. And I think what's really nice on this car is the silver wheels contrasted with the yellow ceramic brakes, right?
Yep.
How good that looks. And everyone thinks, black wheels with yellow ceramic looks good or whatever. It doesn't. These silver wheels, and they look like more of a satin silver, are they? They look kind of satin.
Yeah, they look satin.
Yeah, so they're a satin silver wheel. They're not shiny. They've got the yellow ceramic brake calipers, and then an option which most people wouldn't pick, and I didn't even know that was available, are the mirrors. And the mirrors look, I know you've got carbon mirrors, but how good do the mirrors look in silver? They look really, really cool. And then you go in...
It matches the trim work, the bright work around the window surrounds, which arguably used to be really kind of old-fashioned, because it sort of, I guess, references like chrome on classic kind of cars. Everybody's sort of like on hot, like RS type Audis and stuff like that, everybody deletes. And goes out of their way to kind of delete the silver trim. But on it's not just this car. I think some Tourings you can kind of see that a lot of people actually roll with it. And actually this one's got silver door handles as well, which isn't common.
Yes, and that's what I was going to get onto. And you're exactly right. Everyone deletes the silver. People get black trim, gloss black trim or matte black trim. And also, not only does it have the silver mirror caps, silver mirrors, it's got, like Steve said, silver door handles. But somehow, and I don't know, obviously maybe this works well on the green, but I think it comes together. Doesn't it come together really well? And it just shows you that you shouldn't always follow the flock. You shouldn't always follow what everyone else is doing. You should have a little bit of creativity and do something a little bit different like this. And I know this person has based it on the 50, the 100, whatever it is, millionth car. But they have actually thought a little bit out the box, and they haven't gone with what everyone is choosing at the moment. The thing inside I don't like, and I agree with you, Steve, the wood trim for me, and I know that's what the 50th, the 100th millionth one had, right?
Yep.
I don't like the wood, but I get why he's done it. And I don't like the colour of the wood. I don't like the colour of the wood.
Like on 992s, I think Volvo most recently kind of did it, where it's actually like a proper bit of like a veneered piece of wood, but it's not got the horrible kind of glossy laminate over the top of it. Yeah. That's what makes it look kind of really out of keeping to me. If that was, just sort of natural timber, that would look much better.
You should have corrected me, Steve. I just said 100 millionth 911, the millionth 911, not 100 millionth. What's wrong with me? I'm half asleep. And I think, the new 992 wood is a nicer looking wood, isn't it? The wood you can option is a much nicer looking wood. So the wood I'm not keen on. Inside the interior, I like the seats. That Steve's fabric is almost the same, right, Steve? Or is the same?
It is.
I don't like the armrest with the Peter fabric. I think that's a bit wrong. But I think the exterior of the car makes you think about, I thought it was a 992 Touring. It's not a 992 Touring.
No, 991.2.
Yeah, sorry, I said 992 Touring. Sorry, it's not a 992, it's a 991.2. But I think it's done really, really well. I actually do think it's done really, really well. And it's got GT3 lettering on the seats. Anyway, check that out if you haven't seen it. I made a lot of mistakes in that conversation. 1 millionth. And it's a 991.2, not a 992. I don't know why I thought it was a 992. Steve, let's get into this. Let's just get into the GT3 thing. Now, Steve put a note on our notes. We have little notes, little point notes that's put together. I'm a little bit slack with him. But Steve put something down that no one can buy a new GT3 anymore. And this was in the back of my mind. And, you know, that especially when I was watching a video on YouTube, which kind of annoyed me. And this video was from a well-known person on YouTube called Mr. JWW. And he just bought a GT3 in, what is it? Canary.
Signal yellow.
Signal yellow. And he's going...
Which is a cool colour.
Yeah, it's a great colour. But, you know, if you want to polarize an audience a little bit, is that the word, Steve? If you want to polarize an audience, I think you've done a really good job. And I had to stop watching the video. I couldn't watch it. And I know there's a lot of people listening who are probably going to disagree. But, you know, for one, and Steve and I were talking about this before we started recording, and I don't know whether you agree with this, Steve, but the thing that annoyed me the most was that his order of his videos, in that the first one he posted was the Signal Yellow 992 GT3, and he kept harping on about the fact that he got, how it's been so hard for him to get an allocation in PTS, and this Porsche dealer that he dealt with gave him the allocation in the colour. And as I said to Steve, you know, one, in the UK, there was no PTS in 991.2. There was one guy that had one which was in the orange. Somehow he got one, but no one else could get PTS. It wasn't available. They didn't offer it. So, yeah, of course he couldn't get it in PTS because, one, it wasn't available. And then he makes out the point that, you know, it wasn't about getting the allocation for the GT3 G3 that he was, you know, worried about. It was just getting the right color, because obviously getting an allocation is just easy. A lot of people are struggling to get allocation. And like you said in your post, in your notes, Steve, a lot of well-known people cannot get an allocation. I think I heard it on a podcast too. Even well-known people cannot get these allocations, correct?
Yeah, the point that I sort of just noticed was, I don't know why, I was sort of semi-thinking about you, because it's like, the day you cash in your crypto and you've kind of got, you know, money to burn, even if you wanted to go and buy, you know, like your 992 GT3, whether it's a touring or whether it's got wings, sounds like you can't actually do it. Like, because the people that I was referencing was that Damien guy from the Car Guys, Sam Moores, who's got that Porsche Chat podcast, who I kind of tend to follow his stuff. He's a photographer. He's got a lot of sort of family wealth, and he just kind of flogged his F40 and stuff like that and bought a 812 Superfast. So like somebody of his ilk, as an example, so like he's obviously got tons of money. He's a proven car guy. He's got a GT3 RS, a 997 GT3 RS. He had a GT4, so he is actually like a proven Porsche customer as well. Then on top of that, he's, you know, like, I don't think he's sort of like the top of the tree of social influencers, but he's got like a profile. Like he's, you know, like he's kind of more JWW kind of thing. And he still can't get a car, because he sort of said that he's been trying to get on a list since the 991s came out.
Which is crazy. And honestly, you know, I think for Porsche, I think for Porsche, he's a better person to have as a brand ambassador than JWW. Sorry. And I don't understand. Yeah. I don't understand all these YouTubers, and I like TGE. I don't have a problem with TGE TV with his Porsche collection. I like him. I can watch him.
Same.
But you know, JWW, honestly, I'm not going to watch him anymore. I can't stand it. I watched that because it was about Porsche. I will not watch any more of his videos. I've unfollowed him from Instagram. He just annoys the shit out of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same. I stopped watching him ages ago.
And also the order of his order of his video, right? He makes out like it's such a big deal that he got this allocation for a color. You know, like you said, and people like Sam Moores, other people, you know, and Damien from the Car Guys, who should be getting an allocation for a goddamn GT3, right? Honestly, you know.
Well, they've got I don't know, it's just really interesting because take it out of like influencer world, it does make you kind of think that all of a sudden, if you are a car person, or even if you have bought like a Porsche a new Porsche from a dealership, it sounds like that's not really enough to kind of secure yourself a 992 GT3. I don't know what it's like in Australia. I have no idea. Like, I don't know anyone, and I guess some of the Porsche Forums Australia people or James Porsche Platz or somebody like that might have a little bit more insight, or that other guy Stephen
from Sydney.
Was on.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's. I still think it's probably the top Porsche guys are getting them. You know what I mean? People have had Speedsters, people have had 911Rs, people have had, you know, Tourings before maybe. I don't know how you get in with Porsche Sydney or Porsche Willoughby. I guess it's a pretty hard process though. Smaller market in Australia, but also smaller allocations.
I've read a few kind of threads here and there, like, on piston heads and Renlist and all that sort of stuff. And, like, look, I'm sure everybody's I'm not sort of saying anything new, but when people are kind of implying that, like, some dealers are kind of honest and say, look, it goes on spend, and we've kind of got some customers that have spent, like quite a few $1 million on cars over the years, they will get a car. But, like, if you've only spent, like a couple of $100,000, it's very unlikely. Like, unfortunately, sir, you'll be at the bottom of the list. And it's like, whoa, that's pretty full on.
But wasn't there something about people that got speedsters? The first people they looked at were people that had 918 Spiders, and then if you had that, or was that the 911R? If you had a 918 Spider, then you you'd get the R. Yeah.
You had to get. They were the first people that kind of got options on getting an R, and it's just a bit of a funny one because obviously the furor is like, well, you are talking to these super rich, like, and those kind of people probably can afford to just go, oh yeah, I'll kind of grab one because they knew that it would be rare, and they probably knew that they could make money on it. I guess that's part of it too. So, like, just making cars that people can kind of enjoy and not worry so much about the flipping value and all that sort of stuff.
But the problem is with this allocation. I just want to finish on one thing about that JWW video, right? And I know there's a lot of people who are disagreeing, and I know a lot of people love him, and I've probably made people hate me from saying that. But this podcast has always been about me and Steve just speaking our mind. It's always been about our enthusiasm. And things that annoy us, and things we like, and things that annoy us. That just annoyed me during the week. But the thing that annoyed me the most, apart from the allocation and apart from that, PTS comment, right, was that he did the videos very carefully, where he put the GT3 one out first, and then he put the GT3 RS 4.0997 one out second. Now, well, yeah, of course you're going to get allocation if you bought one of those. I don't know whether he bought it from the same dealer. I think he did, didn't he?
Well, it kind of was implied because, like, the car was under a cover in the background in the first video.
Exactly.
So, like, I'm assuming that he bought it from the same dealership.
Yeah, which he probably did.
And look, that's an all-time kind of monster car, like that black 4.0. It's such a nice car, but this is going to sound like a little bit bitchy, I suppose, but the spec of it's a sort of tiny bit kind of funny, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Like, it's got GT2 seats, like the folding buckets, as opposed to the Carrera buckets.
Yeah, it's not a great spec. It's not a great spec, I don't think. Not well optioned.
He sort of talked about how he liked it because all the kind of bits of red sort of matched each other, sort of thing. But I would have thought that if you're going to, surely that's like a crazy expensive car. But I would have thought that if you were in that type of territory buying that type of car, that you would have wanted the Carrera GT style seats. You probably would have wanted carbon ceramics, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I don't know, it was slightly funny kind of spec, I thought.
Yeah, enough of all that. But the thing is, anyway, this allocation thing that Steve, pointed out, and we all know about, this allocation of GT3s had not even, people who should be getting one can get one. This is in the UK. I don't know if it is in the US. If anyone's listening who's got an allocation for a GT3 992, let us know. But then we get back onto Porsche values again, and we have to hit this because this allocation thing with GT3s. And I was going to say, Steve, this chip shortage, which Porsche is still using and everyone else is still using, where they let all the chips go to the television manufacturers instead of keeping them for cars, because for some reason they thought cars wouldn't sell during COVID. You can't even order a Carrera or a Carrera S. Apparently, the wait list now is like a year just to order a basic 911. I mean, you know what I mean? It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know how long it would even take you to get, if you want a GTS, the new GTS in manual, because it's in manual. How do you get one of those? It must be, the gentleman that spoke to me a couple of weeks ago said he's waiting until what? What did I say? Next year, right? He's waiting still another 7 months for it. Oh,
that's right, yes.
Yeah, in the US. I think he's in the US or UK. Another 7 months for it. Like, it's a long wait you have to wait. And like you said, what happens then? Does a new model come out, the new generation? What do you do? If it's on the cusp of the new generation. So there's a lot of decisions to be made. And this, you don't get the instant gratification. So we come back to the classic car market. We come back to Bring a Trailer. We come back to the reach of Bring a Trailer, and how even though there are these other auction sites like Collecting Cars and Doug DeMura's one, whatever it's called. I can't remember what it's called.
Cars and Bids.
Cars and Bids, Bring a Trailer is still the leader, right? And I think Bring a Trailer is owned by Haggerty now. I think Haggerty bought Bring a Trailer, didn't it? Or someone like that.
Did it?
I think so. It was bought out I think the guy sold out and he made an absolute mint from it. I heard that on a Chris Harris podcast, I think. Bring a trailer is still a leader, right? It still gets the most people. I mean, obviously collecting cars is doing really well. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, if you can't get a new car, we know this is forcing people to buy classic cars. It's forcing people to buy used ones. Now, you just said if I made money from investments, I couldn't even buy a new GT3. And that's true. You'd have to buy one that someone's just bought and flipped straight away, which would cost you a premium. Or you could look at a 991.2, which I'm very keen on, and I think a lot of people are keen on. And manual's obviously the pick, but obviously the PDK, if PDK came up at a good price on the 991.2, I think you couldn't say no to it, Steve. I know you're more manual, but I think you couldn't say no to it if it was a good price. But not at the same price that manuals are going for, which it looks like they are at the moment in Australia. They're all about $365 for manual or PDK. It's like, well, you get the manual. Do you know what I mean? And there's a couple of good ones for sale in Australia, though. There's the crayon. That's one of my favorite colors. I think there's 2 crayon ones for sale at the moment. Chalk crayon.
Yep. I suppose, though, like if you're, again, I was kind of going, oh, well, if you've kind of got like a $400,000 kind of wad of cash and you've got money to burn, you can't go and order your new 992 GT3 because you just can't get on the list. I suppose if you kind of had that sort of money and you just really wanted the car, because obviously they're obviously going to be great cars. I suppose there's nothing to stop you from then going and paying the premium and kind of, going to an independent kind of car dealer or back to a Porsche dealership and sort of going and buying, a nearly new one, having to pay the premium, because I guess what's protecting you is that undoubtedly they are going to hold their value in the near future. Like, you wouldn't pay double kind of thing, but if you had to kind of pay a premium, then I guess, that you're kind of doing all right. It obviously, we're not saying anything that hasn't been said before. Like, it obviously grates on, like, most of us, like the kind of enthusiasts in us, but I suppose if you're truly in the market, it's not like a completely stupid thing to do.
Yeah, but I mean, it's gone to the days where you can just think, oh, I want a new car, I'll go and order it, or they might have one in stock, or I might have to wait 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Gone are those days. It's not going to happen ever again. Having
said that, though, are you on any of the Australian dealerships mailing lists?
No.
Or Porsche Australia? I got an email. I got the official email for that Australian edition. The 70th year Australian edition. And it's like, oh, I wonder if that means that they're actually still available if they're sending this email out, or whether I would have thought that maybe they might just be sold out.
Yeah, you'd think they'd be sold out.
Maybe about 2 weeks ago, I think.
They're not cheap, though. They're not cheap, are they?
Crazy expensive.
Yeah, they're not cheap. And a friend of Stephen in Sydney has bought one, I think, but they're not cheap. I just want to carry on with this just a little bit, because we're talking about the GT3, right? And of course, like we said, you don't want to buy it at crazy prices, Steve. You wouldn't buy it at what 911R prices were going for when they were selling for, $1.1 million, $1 million in Sydney. And then they dropped back to $579, $569. Anyone that bought one at that price got a bargain, or $600 even got a bargain. I mean, I think in Australia, I don't know, because there was like 2 or 3 on car sales, and they sold pretty quickly. And I think the range was $579 to $639, I think, which I still think is a great price for that car. I think you would never lose money on that car. I mean, it retailed for $450, I think, when it was launched in Australia, plus on roads. And you had to be invited to buy one. I think you said you knew someone or worked with someone a client that had one, didn't you? You told me.
A client sort of admitted that not admitted, he just, I came to recognise that he was a car guy, and then he had a GT3 RS, and he told me about his 911R, and he flogged it for over $1 million. But I've said this before, his little anecdote was he didn't necessarily buy it to kind of make money on it, but it got to the point where it appreciated so much that he couldn't get insurance for it at the actual kind of market value, like, the $1 million instead of the $500,000 or less than $500,000. And he didn't really want to drive it on the street because he knew it was so valuable, didn't want to rack up the miles. So he had this amazing car, which he really, really kind of wanted to enjoy, but he couldn't enjoy it because of the value got so high, so he got rid of it. It's a really funny conundrum when you think about that logic.
Yeah, but then again, you really do want to get, and I was having this conversation on own stories, but, you want to get your car valued at at what value you want, right? What is that? Agreed value. You want agreed value. You don't want market value. Because if you get market value and it's too low, I'm worried my car now is underinsured. I am really worried because they wouldn't insure it anymore. I'm worried it's underinsured by 10 grand, right? And I want to talk about these GT3 prices from that post and what you think based on your car, Steve, too. Because if it's underinsured and you have an accident, God forbid, and your car and the insurance company writes it off because you're that...
Well, if it's written off,
written off because you're underinsured, then you're in trouble. So you have to get agreed value. You have to push it. Now, I'm thinking if Porsche insurance in Australia doesn't give me what I want, then I might have to change insurance companies and get what I want, because I know you changed. Because I want a certain value now, and it's not the value that Porsche insurance would give me. You know, and I know they said, "Oh, let us check car sales and get back to you." It's like, surely that's not your only goddamn, reference point is car sales.
No, I don't think it is, because I think insured values are very different from advertised values. Like, I think we kind of all get a bit hung up too on the prices that you see advertised, but that doesn't necessarily equate to what the car is actually kind of sold for starters. And I think when it comes to insurance too, like, you often get your kind of letter in the mail and they kind of go, hey, like, this year we want to make your car worth, like, even though it was worth like 120 last year, like this year we think it's worth 100.
Yeah,
and
which is what they did to me.
Inevitably everybody sits there and kind of goes, well, where did you get that number from? Because you're cross-referencing other things. Like, I believe from a little bit of knowledge from insurance industry types, it's not just done off, like kind of car sale values and stuff like that. And you'd also like to think that Porsche Australia should have a much better kind of, be far more in tune with the value of, like a GT3 than, NRMA kind of thing.
Well, in February, Porsche Insurance put my car down by, I think it was $4,000 of what it was the previous year. Now that's in January. Now we know what the price, what the market was in January. The market in January was like the market at the end of 2020. You know what I mean? But they still thought it was a 997 Carrera with that low kilometers and that in that condition was worth $4,000 more, which I argued. And they put the $4,000 back, but they wouldn't give me any more than that. They wouldn't actually take it up to any higher than that. Now, if my car was written off today, one, due to the lack of cars on the market, I probably wouldn't be able to get one. And two, if I could find one, I'd have to top it up with extra money because there wouldn't be enough cash there. And I'd probably be, I reckon I would be 15 grand short.
Yeah, I reckon you probably would be too. But so I talked about this again as well. Like, the same thing happened to me. Like, I did my renewal, maybe about a month ago? And the same thing, I was with Porsche Insurance. They sent me a thing. But in the same breath of sending me the email, the guy that, that was looking after me sort of said, oh, we have a feeling that your car might be under. So, like, if you want me to go back and have a look at the value of it, I'd be happy to, which I obviously sort of said yes, because he was about 20 or 30 grand under. So he went back and then they kind of agreed to it. So I think my tip when it comes to insurance renewals is pretty much, and I do it absolutely every year, which is I always pick up the phone and ring them and just sort of go, look, I'd like to kind of talk about like the agreed value and sort of, like inevitably sort of bump it back up, because inevitably every year they try to bump it down on you. But with like exactly what you just sort of said for a second, there does come a point where even though, let's just pretend it's your car and you sort of go, hey, like you'd much rather have your car valued at 120, but they're only doing it at 100. There does come a point where they will go your full 120, but they charge you handsomely in your premium, and you might find that the happy medium is actually like 110, where the premium isn't that much higher to kind of get it to that point. Yeah, true. Which is kind of where I got to. Yeah, exactly. I just want to lead into James at Porsche Platz. James has been on Owner Stories before. If you haven't followed James on Instagram, give him a follow. Porsche Platz, Platz. James finds cars for people in Australia, Porsches. He has RSR Classics, his business. And he put a post on Porsche Forums Australia. I hope, James, you don't mind me saying this on the podcast. I'm sure you don't. And he's after a GT3, 996 or 997 GT3. Whether this is for himself or for a client, I don't know. But he's after one.
And then someone called him out and said, what are the prices that you think are the reasonable prices? So he put the prices down. And I think that he's pretty spot on, Steve. What do you think? I think these prices are pretty spot on. And I'm just going to read them out. 996.1, and this is Australian dollars for get your converters out, all the people overseas are listening. 996.1 with high kilometres in rough condition, James reckons it's around 140 to 150 Australian dollars, 150,000 Australian dollars. Good clean condition, reasonable kilometres around 170 to 190, 996.1. And super clean, low kilometres around 250. That just blows my mind, by the way, for a 996.1. 996.1 is obviously more collectible, it seems. 996.2, he makes the point that he's only seen a few lately for sale. Good, clean, and reasonable condition, 170K to 200K. Steve?
Yeah, and I've seen, I sort of read a few of particularly the GT3 kind of posts on that Porsche Forums Australia thing. So again, when you read some of the pricing on there, some people divulge either the prices they're willing to pay or they bought for, as opposed to just trawling car sales and looking at the actual advertised prices. So, I mean, I was quite surprised how dear 996.1s are getting, right up to the 200s, which is kind of where only a couple of months ago I thought that's what the price of a 997.1 was at.
Exactly. So then we go on to the 997.1. He doesn't put 997.2. Obviously, he hasn't got the details, or he's not interested in that. They're around 220 to 250. Now, 220 is probably what you thought it was, Steve. 250, do you think it was as high as 250?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure that it's obviously kind of based on condition. I do follow those quite a bit. And again, I've only got the sale prices to kind of go by, but you can tell when obviously a sale price kind of goes up and the car moves really quickly. I won't say who they are because I do actually know people that have bought and sold 997.1s similar to my car, and it actually fits that kind of number quite accurately, that range.
It's interesting though, isn't it, Steve? Because originally if you were looking for a GT3, you think, okay, I'll get the 996.1 because it's the one that's going to be the cheapest. The 0.2 will be a bit more expensive because people like the upgrades that were done on the 0.2, right?
Yeah.
And then the 997 is going to be out of my price range. Now, if you're buying a GT3, your 996.1 top end is 250. Your 997.1 is around 250, right? And then your 996.2 is actually at a price where maybe I should be looking at the 996.2 if what James has put down is correct. And like I said, James buys and sells Porsches, so he has he has knowledge and he knows a lot of people that have good Porsche, big Porsche collections. I think
he'd have pretty good insight.
Yeah. And I trust what James has put on these figures, and I think, well, that's interesting if you're shopping. I'm not. Everyone knows I want a GT3 eventually, right? So, and I look at these prices and I go, well, what would I be shopping for? And you kind of pinpoint the 0.2996, but then they don't come up. So if they do start to come up and they start to sell, then is that price going to go as well? And I'm guessing these levels are probably pretty similar around the world. I think, based on currency or whatever, but I think they're probably pretty close. What do you think?
Yeah. So if we were talking specifically about you, and, you were ready to kind of move on your GT3, all I can say is that they're going up, get in, because it does feel like it is just kind of going up. And I don't know, anecdotally, I sort of feel like there seems to be kind of fewer of them. I reckon maybe they're kind of getting bought and it'll get to the point where people will hold on to them sort of longer and they won't get flipped as much.
People are hodling.
But I reckon specifically kind of for you, there's no bad car in that. You think about it, if you had a 996.1 or a 0.2 or a 997.1, or even if you could stretch to a 0.2, they're all going to be amazing cars. You'd be the happiest man alive because
exactly.
They would all be really, really cool, but they would all be so enjoyable in their own right, and they'd have their kind of differences. But I don't think there's a bad one in there.
No, there's not a bad one in there, and a GT3 is a great car, and a lot of people aspire to having a GT3. But that doesn't mean that a slow car isn't as exciting, Steve. Let's segue into this. It doesn't mean a slow car isn't exciting. And Benjamin said this to me in the owner stories. He said he's a slow car, fast type of guy. I think he told me.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it was Benjamin.
Yep.
Slow car, fast type of guy. And I've heard that before, that slow car, fast thing. And I liked it. I liked it that much that I just sort of put it into the podcast. And
yeah, Matt Farah's spoken about it quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, and it made me think as well, is that we go back into this thing, and we've talked about it in previous episodes, but it was something I heard in I'm going to say Matt Farah again, in Smoking Tire podcast during the week. I think it was with Hannah Elliott, Magnus Walker's partner. But is it getting to the point now we are too obsessed with speed, right? Is the thing that attracts people, and I know it's not with the GT3, maybe not so much for everyone. It's not really about the speed, right? But it kind of is about the speed. No. It is about the performance. It's about the performance more than the speed. But the point that I was going to get to is this thing with classic cars and the car market, and that thing with electric cars. And I think in Smoking Tire they were chatting about like how cars feel at traffic lights, how when you're sitting at the traffic lights, and I could get this wrong, but I think they were talking about how cars sit at the traffic lights and how, a Mustang to a Corvette to whatever car, the difference to a car by how it rumbles and how it is at the traffic lights. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the point is that with an electric car, doesn't matter what you've got, Taycan, Tesla, whatever, they all feel the same. They all are pretty much the same. You know what I mean? They don't really feel any different. You don't get the character of the car coming out. It's like, are they an appliance? Probably. They don't have as much character. They don't have that internal combustion engine feel. They don't have that experience that you get. And because everyone's going to start to buy electric cars, and I think, even in the next couple of years, with the amount of people, the uptake of electric cars and more, electric trucks, pickups in America coming on the market, and things like that, where people are going to buy more electric cars. This thing with top speed, the thing with this obsession with top speed and 0 to 100 or 0 to 60 miles an hour is a bit obsolete, right? Because it's like, well, yeah, I can go as fast as I want because I can go under 3 seconds or close 2.2 seconds or whatever ridiculous speed it is.
Yep.
I don't know, Steve, does this make slower cars like 912s, one of my favorites, and even 914s, which I've been looking at. And if anyone's looking for a 914, a one-owner original 914 just came up on European Collectibles in Ivory. $41,000 US, which I know is top dollar for a 2-litre. But Jerry Seinfeld said the 2-litre is more enjoyable. It came up yesterday. It's a really good one. To me, it looks like a really good one. But does this mean the slower cars, is this why the classic market is starting to pick up? This thing about, top speed of electric cars and 0 to 100 in 2 seconds and 0 to 60 in 2 seconds or whatever. Is this why the classic market is going crazy? It's not really about COVID. It is about the market changing with the electric generation coming through.
Yeah, I think it's probably because people are kind of realizing it's even prior to like electric kind of cars. Like if you think of, say, I guess more accurately, like an 11 turbo or was it a 488 versus a 458 Ferrari?
Yes.
I think people kind of started to realize that actually a 458 was perfectly sufficient, and without the turbos there was a sort of like different kind of power delivery and everything. Like 488 is amazing, like yes, if you can afford it kind of thing, but from that point onwards, do you really actually need that much power? No, obviously you don't. And then Chris Harris has kind of banged on where he sort of said that about 500 brake horsepower is about the limit. Like you don't need more than that. And he's obviously got skills. Like, when it comes to, I was going to say when whether it's us or anybody kind of quotes 0 to 100 times, like it is a bit of a furphy really, because like when was the last time you sat at the traffic lights and you literally dumped your clutch to get the fastest 0 to 100 time that you possibly could? There's no way that you're going to have that little mechanical sympathy on your own car. So like those numbers are relatively, like you talk about it because it kind of gives you a measurement, but it's sort of quite irrelevant when you think about it. Like I know there are some people who are quite enthusiastic and they kind of go and take their car to drag strips on a weekday night, like a proper drag strip, just to kind of test it, and you get your jollies out of that, which is like more than cool, like, part of your hobby sort of thing. But I think to a layman like you or I, like a 0 to 100 time is, when you think about it, relatively meaningless.
But, I've heard it on podcasts and I've read it in articles as well, that a lot of people that buy Teslas or electric cars, they don't even know, some of the people don't even know the power they've got. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you've got all this, you've got your 80s and 90s cars, your 80s and 90s and 70s sports cars that all of them now are slow to a family electric car. The Model S Plaid or the Model S, everything is faster. You know what I mean? So it gets to the point where we come back to this experience thing, Steve, don't we? We do come back to more of the experience and the fun of the drive. And I think even more so, and I know the GT3 is fast and the GT3 RS is fast or whatever, but is there a big gap now? You know what I'm saying? Like, is there a big gap between your GT3 and my Carrera? As in, if the electric market is so flooded and electric cars are taking off and 50% of people have electric cars, does it really matter if you're driving a GT3 or you're driving a 997? Because compared to electric cars, the experience far outweighs it.
I see what you're saying.
Far outweighs it. You know what I mean? So everything, the way you think about things, the way your mindset is everything is changing. This is what I'm trying to work out. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. I think there's a catch to it though, because I don't think, and like I know we're just talking about the theory of it. Like again, I've heard on Zach and Matt talk about it on Smoking Tire, like where that kind of adage where for car enthusiasts, whenever they sort of go, what car should I get, to get my jollies? And they kind of joke that the answer is a Miata MX-5. But in the same breath, like everybody has also kind of said, but they're slow. So they're hell fun, like if you know how to drive one and it's a momentum car, you kind of go to the twisties or take it to the track or whatever. It's a great car to kind of get your jollies, but they are actually kind of slow cars. And I kind of equate that to like when I had my 993, and I possibly could probably feel like that to a degree with my GT3 now even, like, which is in my 993, I remember sort of going, yeah, this sounds great, blah, blah, blah. It's a mad fun car, but, like if I was going to go for a convoy drive with my cousin in and I was chasing a, later model GTI or a Golf R or whatever, I wouldn't be able to keep up with that thing. So there is a point where you kind of also went, well, this was a fast car, but it ain't anymore. And do I crave a little bit more speed and power? And I do, like that was one of the reasons for kind of shifting on from the 993 as cool a car as that was. It's like, oh, it feels a tiny bit slow.
Right.
And like, I'm sure like if I, same thing. So like if I had to go and chase like a current model, Golf R in my GT3 and, I'm no race car driver, I don't think I'm a great driver. I don't think I'm kind of terrible, but I don't think I'm brilliant.
Yeah.
I would get outpaced by a Golf R, and like you're talking about a Porsche GT3. So like,
yeah, it's crazy.
To a degree, yeah. Like obviously the point that we're talking about is partly it's not just about power and speed. Obviously, there's so much more to it than that. Like it's noise and handling and like there's many different kind of aspects to it. It's more about how it sort of makes you feel, and like to that point I would still argue, and I'm guessing without sort of sounding rude, like even if you were debating it when you sort of said, like is there really going to be any difference between your Carrera and my GT3, I would say yes, there is actually quite a big difference.
And there is a difference because I've driven both.
It's not,
right? But the thing is that difference that
factor.
important? But is that difference that important when electric cars become, 50%, 60% of the population? Do you know what I mean? This is where you know what I mean? Like it's a tricky one because it is.
It'll be against your budget. It'll really be against your budget sort of thing. It'll be more. Yeah.
It's a budget, right? It's a budget thing. But it's rethinking as well. We all have to recalibrate our minds because we're so used to top speed and we're so used to 0 to 60, 0 to 100. We're so used to all these things, which now is like, well, yeah, the electric cars can do that, but do you want one? You know what I mean? I mean, I can cook my meals in a microwave every night, but it doesn't taste the same as going out and getting my private chef to cook for me. You know what I mean? It's that same sort of analogy. It's like that's kind of how it feels. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think it's funny. The thing I find funny about this sort of thing too is that people are starting to look backwards at cars that weren't really like the one I'm thinking of mainly is like an E36 M3.
Yeah.
Like I remember when they kind of came out, like they were very common.
Yeah.
then as time went on, you know, the E46 came out, which was like the M3 to have,
Yeah,
and the
much better.
E92. And then everybody kind of shat on like E36s and just sort of said, oh, that was a terrible version of an M3. Like, that's not the one to have.
Yeah.
But if you now look at the prices of those and you look at the conversation that's going on,
Yeah.
everybody's starting to look back at that car with kind of rose-tinted glasses to a degree, and they're starting to go, oh, that's a great car.
I hate to say it, but though, was that because these people weren't born when that car was out? And this came up
Yeah,
in something I was listening to
possibly.
the other day, that people aren't born, so they think that these cars are so good, but they don't remember them in the time. So if they don't remember them in the time, they think they're just something like fantastic when they never were fantastic, you know? And that's why all these cars, all these, you know, even some of the Japanese cars are going up in value, you know?
But is it because also, like we've sort of said before, that cars have become so competent, and, you know, like your average kind of hatchback versus your BMW 3 Series sedan or whatever, they're all kind of such a kind of good level that if you really wanted to fang it and you're sort of trying to, you know, go fast around the old Pacific Highway, you can pretty much do that in any kind of car. And go quickly. I'm not talking about how fun it is, but if you want to kind of go quickly and keep up with something, you can kind of do that quite well. But is it because they're all so competent that people are now sort of looking back at some of these cars like an E36, or like they'll look back at some of these Porsches that we're talking about or whatever, like a Boxster.
Yes.
And people are then kind of going, oh, okay, there's actually much more to it than, you know, just kind of getting from A to B really quickly. Like all these sort of cars that we didn't think were that great are actually like a lot more fun than we kind of gave them credit for.
Yeah. And is that the result of making a perfect appliance, right? You're making the perfect electric car. You're making this electric car, and sure, the quality's crap, right, of the body, but you're making a car that does everything for everyone, you know? Eventually it will have a toaster in it, you know? It does absolutely everything for everyone, and it's too perfect.
Yep.
So these cars that weren't so perfect, you know, you forget their flaws. You forget the flaws of the Boxster 986, you know? Speaking to, I'm going to forget who it was now. Going to pass my mind. I'm sorry. Someone on Owner Stories, you might remember Steve, who had the BMW M3 E39, and he had it in SMG, and he said he liked the SMG.
Oh yes, yeah. Because it had the kick to it, as opposed to like the equivalent dual clutch transmission, which didn't have it, and he liked the that it sort of kind of gave you that little shove, like when you sort of change gears.
And you know what I mean? Like we hate, you know, these things that were hated at the time, and motoring journalists used to like just harp on, you know, and enthusiasts on forums harp on. But these flaws now become character traits. They become traits that people are attracted to and people are willing to like overlook and buy these cars. And it's happening. It is happening. And maybe that is the perfection. Well, you know, they're not perfect, but you know, this thing about electric cars, you know, doing everything. Maybe you want something that doesn't do everything 100% right. You know, you want some character. And that's what I think, I don't know, I think that's what it's about.
Yeah, I definitely so. Like, you know, I've from sort of late, maybe about 2010 onwards, whenever I jumped into like a new model car, I can't think of one off the top of my head, maybe like Mercs and stuff like that. It's just that they're so good. Like, they're fast, they're really torquey, but they're super quiet and all of that sort of stuff. You just didn't feel like you kind of got anything out of it, even if you sort of, you know, floored it. It just didn't have that kind of character, and it sort of got to the point where it's like, wow, like I have to drive really, really quickly to get any sort of enjoyment, like sort of visceral kind of enjoyment out of the car.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you're kind of driving to work every day, like if you have to kind of do the commute and you're driving, then that's brilliant kind of thing, which is also one of these plus things about an EV. Like, I'm sure if I had to kind of drive to an office every day, then a Tesla or a Taycan would be absolutely kind of perfect for that. But not for my weekend jollies.
No, and I spoke to someone on Owner Stories this week, who's coming up next week.
Right.
And Brian, he's got a Tesla Model 3, and he says, you know, most of the time they take that to the shops, they use that because it's just so easy. Do you know what I mean? It's just so easy, and I think that is, you know, maybe everyone's going to have one in their garage, but it's not really going to give you, you know, it is your family car, it is your general, you know, day-to-day car. Maybe, I don't know what's going to happen.
My wife's always sort of like had that thing. I think she kind of read that Elon Musk book, and she kind of liked the looks of Teslas. blah blah blah. So she's always sort of said that she'd love to have one, and I've always kind of turned my nose up at it. I can see, like, for somebody like her, why it would be kind of really, really good in theory.
The Model Y, Y Tesla would probably be a good one for you, because it's supposed to be a good car, a good family car.
Not yet. Not yet, mate. I'd, like, in all seriousness, I would still, whilst we can, whilst we've still got kind of internal combustion engines and they do actually make noise and they kind of have flaws and stuff, like, like, I just drive the hell and enjoy all of these cars while you can. It's like, I laughed at my cousin who bought the M3 recently. He, at the same, or not long after, so he bought this F80 M3, which is his pride and joy.
Nice car.
Super cool.
Yeah, I like them. Competition, right?
Then he bought a 1.4 TSI Golf off his parents. Like, they needed a new car, so he bought that car off them to do the commute in. Like, he kind of has to drive, I think, maybe about 30 or 40 kilometres a day.
Right.
And it's like, he was kind of going, oh, it's such a great car, it's such a great car. It's like, no, mate, it's a piece of shit. Like, seriously, like, like, we've only got so much time left with, like, something as cool as
Try something a little bit better.
Yeah, just enjoy it. Don't save the mileage. Don't worry about it. Just, enjoy the car, because I bet you in like 10 or 15 years when we're all driving around in, Dyson cars, like, you just may as well make the most of it while you can. So, like, true. I personally would still love to just kind of keep going with a, like a V8 or something like that.
Yeah.
As the family kind of trucks to, just for a while.
Yeah.
And like, when the time comes to switch to EV, I'll do it, absolutely. And I'm sure, like, I'll see the what's good about it, but I reckon it's just kind of make the most of it while you can.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll tell you what I've been looking at, though, and I know Marco has one. I've been looking at R32s. I don't know why I keep talking to people that have had R32s.
Yeah, they're cool.
You never had one of those, did you? You had the VR6, right?
No, I had a VR6. And Marco, unless he's hiding something from me, I thought he's got a VR6 on an R32.
He has an R32 with really low kilometres, I think he told me.
No, VR6. I'm pretty sure you're talking about a VR6.
Are you sure?
First gen VR6.
I thought Marco told me he had an R32. It was a VR6, is it?
I'm pretty sure it's a VR6,
Maybe I'm wrong. Sorry, Marco.
Marco, where are you?
Or Steve's wrong. Correct whoever's wrong, please. Steve, I just want... I think
they're great cars.
Yeah, they are. They're great cars, but there's none available. There's none on car sales at all. Not one. No R32s, I'm telling you. That's the next one. You watch. There's none. I
worked with a few Volkswagen heads, like a couple of guys who were massively into their Volkswagens, and that first generation R32, I think that was the Mark IV.
Mark IV,
Even the Mark IV wasn't a great car. The R32, it sounded like that was the one to have, because that was the first time they put that package together.
Yeah. It's quite cool inside, though. It's very of the era, of the time, but it's quite good.
Yeah, I thought they were great looking cars.
Yeah. Like I said, there's not many available, so maybe everyone's picked them up already. Steve, we've got to go, but before we go, I just want to read out these few reviews, which I didn't read out. So we got 3 Apple ratings and reviews is where we get seen, where the podcast gets seen, which pushes our podcast up the charts in the US, UK, Australia. We were number 1 in, I sent it to you, Steve, Costa Rica, wasn't it? Number 1 in Costa Rica.
No, Italy, wasn't it?
And we're number 1 in Italy too. Oh, we're also number 1 in Costa Rica. Sorry, I mustn't have sent that to you. I posted it on Instagram. Yeah.
Where is Costa Rica?
So number 1. Hopefully they understand everything we're talking about. 3 new reviews anyway, and these reviews.
Hilarious.
These reviews, number 1 in Italy though, guys. Number 1 in Italy. Kestas, it's all because of you. Thank you so much because of your Italian connection.
It's just him, right?
Yep. All right, Steve. Perfect. 3 reviews. I'm going to read them actually. Perfect Porsche Community Podcast. Those of us who have had the privilege of association with Porsche will find a home in the community here, no matter where on the planet. The passion is evident. The chat is relaxing. The owner's story is inspiring. Highly recommended to subscribe. And that's from Mark in the Southern Highlands. I know who Mark is. Thank you, Mark. Mark is Air-Cooled 32 in Australia. I've been chatting to Mark on Instagram. The deluxe model of podcasts. I started following Michael Barth on social media several years ago. His content is always intriguing and entertaining. I was glad to see he started PorscheCooled and added his trusty sidekick, Steve. They complement each other very well. Lots of laughs and cover great topics of all things Porsche related. Keep the shiny side up and continue doing what you do. That's from the 997 Garage, Canada. And then the last one, Porsche banter at its best. I love this podcast. Two Aussie guys chatting about all things Porsche. This podcast is best consumed with a large glass of red in your favorite comfy chair. Jez in Great Britain. Jez Guy Mitch via Apple Podcasts, Great Britain. So thank you to those three people for leaving the reviews. It does help. If you have some time, just go to Apple Reviews, give us a star rating, and if you have a little bit extra time, write a short review. It all helps. Steve, thank you. Let's get out of here. We're finished.
Cool.
I know you've got work to do. I've got work to do as well.
I do, and I'm feeling all over the shop. I had my second jab, and I think it's really made me kind of a bit floppy.
Well, you know, I told you when I had my second jab, it knocked me out for 48 hours. So second jab of Pfizer, it knocked me out for 48 hours, which was a bit insane.
I've just got a sore arm, but I'm feeling a little bit kind of groggy or something. I don't know.
Your muscles aren't sore? I felt like I was all like aching, like I was just going to like, you know, I couldn't even get out of bed that well.
Just this arm with the hole in it, but no, it's all good apart from that.
You're fully vaccinated now. You're fully vaxxed.
I was actually laughing. I shared like my retarded, I shouldn't say that, my juvenile gag. I was hoping that this second, like this Pfizer jab would mean that I would sprout a second penis on my forehead. I'm still waiting for it.
Is that one of the side effects? It's only 0.0001%, right? So you're probably going to be unlucky and miss out.
I said that to a friend this morning. I had that joke with a friend this morning. She said, "Oh, maybe it's on the back of your head. You got to look a little bit harder." I was like, yeah, okay.
And let's end on that note. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate. Lost for words.
Yeah, lost for words. You lost. I thought you were gone already. I thought he's gone. I didn't mean that quickly. All right, everyone. That's Steve coming in from Sydney, Australia. My name's Michael Barth. I'm in Bahrain. And that's it for today. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled podcast. Bye for now.